Hey, I'm Harrison. I'm the founder of the Fractional Incubator. If you are a high-level executive and you're deep into your career and you're competent and you're proven and you still rely on one paycheck from one company, then what I'm about to say is for you. And if you've built teams and you've owned a function and you've carried revenue and you've fixed operations and you've cleaned up messes, but your income is still controlled by somebody else's decision-making, then this is for you too. And if you're starting to feel that ceiling with growing your career and you're concerned about your financial security or you're concerned about your upside or you're concerned about layoffs, then this is especially for you, because what most experienced executives haven't fully realized yet is this. And that is, the market is shifting in real time in a huge way. Companies do not want more full-time executives. They don't want to add another $300,000 plus salary with all the benefits and the equity and the long-term commitment that goes along with it. But they will absolutely pay $10,000, $15,000, even $20,000 a month for somebody experienced who can solve a specific problem inside their business. And that's the shift that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about freelancing. I'm not talking about gig work. I'm talking about fractional leadership. The W-2 structure that you and I grew up assuming was so safe and so stable, that structure has quietly become one of the riskiest positions to hold in 2026 in America. And there's a better position that you can be holding now. And it's been there the whole time. And most corporate executives just have no idea that it exists. But you watching this now, you do know you're ahead of the curve. And by the end of this video, you'll know whether fractional is the right move for you. And you'll know how it compares to sticking with your W-2 or trying any other fashionable, popular business model that's out there nowadays. And you'll know what it takes to succeed at fractional. That's my promise to you with this presentation. So let's get into it right now. And we'll start with this. In 2025, U.S. employers announced more than 1.17 million layoffs. This is across the employment market in the U.S. 1.17 million layoffs, and that's the worst year that we've had since the pandemic, and it was a 54% jump from the year prior in 2024. And 2026 has come in even hotter, with tech alone laying off 864 people every single day, which is on pace to blow past their numbers in 2025. The February 2026 jobs report showed 92,000 jobs shed in a single month, and unemployment ticking up to 4.4%, with white-collar sectors taking the brunt of that damage. And these aren't struggling, no-name, tiny companies either. They're the biggest, most successful companies that you would otherwise consider safe, the ones that your peers told themselves they were lucky to get roles inside of, like Amazon. Cut 14,000 corporate roles in October 2025 and did another wave in January of 2026. Over 30,000 layoffs that they've disclosed in total, with the CEO openly stating that AI was a big factor in that. It's letting them run leaner. Microsoft cut 15,000 jobs in 2025. Intel, 24,000, which is about 15% of its global workforce. They slashed two major expansion projects. They shrunk from 99,500 employees to a target of 75,000 employees. Meta, Zuck, what's Zuck up to? Well, Zuck is going to cut 8,000 more jobs in April of 2026 on top of other layoffs that they've already made. Google ran multiple rounds of layoffs across their cloud, their HR, devices, and design divisions. Verizon announced 13,000 cuts in a single sweeping move. Workday, 8.5% of its workforce, which is about 1,750 jobs, that they cut explicitly so that they could reallocate budget to AI. And there's been more. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Walmart, UPS, Nestle, Paramount, Target, Kroger, Rivian, Panasonic, Nissan, Epic Games. Per data first flagged by Aaron Terrazas, who's the former chief economist at Glassdoor, as of April 2026, white-collar payrolls in the U.S. have contracted every single month for 31 months in a row. Almost 3 years of no growth. And these are industries that you probably work in right now. We're talking, these are professional services, finance, technology, software. The foundation of our modern 21st century economy. Employment in those sectors peaked in November 2022 and it's been bleeding, it's been contracting ever since. On March 18th, 2026, the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, publicly admitted, and he said, I quote, effectively, there's zero net job creation in the private sector right now. And so what makes it even worse, the unfortunate truth of this, is this decline is not temporary. This is a structural change. This is a structural decline. It's the reality of the economy from now on. We've never seen a contraction in white-collar employment run this long outside of a recession. And we're not in a recession. Technically, the GDP is growing right now. So this is a first. This is uncharted waters, uncharted territory. Normally, more jobs equals more output, and less output equals less jobs. But this structure is now broken. You can't. We've never seen anything like this before. Companies are producing more with fewer senior employees and executives, and they're not going to go back to the way things were. That genie is officially out of the bottle. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics' March 2026 Employment Situation Report, the number of people unemployed for over 6 months is up 322,000 year over year. And 1 in 4 unemployed Americans have now been jobless for over 6 months. Think about that. 25% of those people have not gotten a paycheck in half a year or more. So in short, what's happening right now, to sum this up, your odds of getting laid off have never been higher. And once you're laid off, there are fewer jobs than ever to get hired back into. And the odds that you'll stay unemployed for over 6 months are higher than ever too. And of course, the gorilla in the room, AI is already pushing this shift, and that's only going to accelerate as the technology gets more and more capable. But there's good news too. I don't mean to be all doom and gloom. It's not all sad and scary. The good news is, while the economy is shifting against full-time W-2 roles, at the same time, it's shifting in favor of a whole new way to work, which is part-time fractional roles. So while, yes, there is a massive jobs crisis, there isn't a work crisis, which is good news for people like us. There are still departments and functions that need to be led. There's still outcomes that need to be driven and targets to hit. And there are still companies with underperforming marketing, sales, finance, and operations functions. And AI isn't going to fix all of those functions. It can make work and time more cost efficient and reduce full-time headcount, but these companies still need senior leadership. They still need competent executives that can set strategy, that can fix problems, decide and manage what work should be done in the first place. So in this new reality, in the wake of this new dawn that we're facing, what are companies doing? How are they addressing this shift? They're hiring fractional executives for $10,000 to $15,000 or more a month on a specific mandate to drive specific outcomes without incurring this full-time $300,000 plus annual salary with all the benefits and all of the taxes and insurance and pay your and everything that goes along with it. AI cannot replace a seasoned executive with 10 years of hands-on experience in that company's industry. It can't replace the expert who's already solved the same problems that company is having right now, who's been solving it for decades. Can't do it. AI is a long, long way from that. Maybe one day, but not today. And I know that because I use it every day. I could tell you for certain it's not there yet, which is good for us. Okay. So according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, again, temporary business management and fractional jobs were up 57% from 2020 to 2023. And there are other stats out there, depending on where you look, that show as much as a 10x increase from 2020 projecting into 2026 in the number of these positions that companies are currently paying for right now. So while the rest of corporate America panics about AI taking their jobs, there's a select group of executives who are actually taking advantage of this situation, who are ahead of the curve because they've gone fractional. While their old colleagues and their family members and their friends are unfortunately getting laid off, this select group of executives, they're signing multiple fractional engagements with those same companies who decided that they could no longer afford this full-time person. And since 2018, The share of fractional executives doing fractional work has more than tripled, according to Revelio Labs. Harvard Business Review reports that the number of professionals on LinkedIn identifying as fractional leaders grew from around 2,000 in 2022 to over 110,000 in 2024, and it's even higher today. And that's even that increase from 22 to 24, that's a 5,400% increase in just a couple of years. Talk about tailwinds, macroeconomic tailwinds. It's happening right now, right this second. And so what I want everyone watching this, what I want you to do is I want you to think about, as you're thinking about what we're talking about, an analogy that I want you to think about is think about a stock portfolio. Okay, a stock portfolio. So nobody in their right mind is going to put 100% of their net worth into a single stock. You just wouldn't do that unless you really going for that moonshot. Nobody's doing that. But that's exactly what you're doing with your income when 100% of your income comes from one employer. Your company goes bankrupt or it restructures or it lays you off for any reason, all of a sudden that income, it goes down to zero. But with fractional, that math flips. So in fractional, you have 2 to 4 clients at $10,000 a month each. You lose one and your income drops by 25, 50%, not 100%. And you can still comfortably pay the bills until you go out and you sign another, which is multiple income streams, which is diversified risk. And that is true financial security. So let's talk about the how. How can you maintain or grow your fractional income while working fewer hours? Well, if you've reached the VP or the C-suite level, C-level title, and you've grinded your way up the corporate ladder for a decade or 2 decades, you're making $250 a year plus. And the only way to make more in a W-2 is more work. It's more responsibility. It's more meetings. It's more hours. It's usually more travel, more people to deal with. And it seemed worth it before in the old paradigm, before we had this shift that we were just talking about. But now that you're there, now that you've made it there and you've been there a while, you're fed up and you're burning out. You want to maintain and grow your income, but you don't want to spend even more time working and even less time with your family as a result. And that's where fractional comes in. So we teach our clients in the Fractional Incubator the best, most proven ways to land fractional engagements in that $10,000 to $15,000 a month range and take around 10 hours a week to fulfill per engagement. So like our client Adam, he sold about $14,500 a month in fractional operations engagements. Our client Sean is doing 2 $10,000 a month fractional CMO engagements. 2 to 3 roles gets you to that $20,000 to $30,000 a month range, working 20 to 30 hours a week. And you can go higher if you want, but that's the standard for a good starter fractional engagement portfolio. So what I want everyone to understand, one of our main theses here, is that you can never really get work-life balance in a corporate executive role. You're normally going to be working 50, 60 hours a week. You can't work from home all the time. You're always going to have to travel. You're usually going to have to travel. And worst of all, you aren't in control. Your company's in control. Your company tells you when to work. They tell you where to work. They tell you what to work on. You can't have work-life balance when your work affects your life so much and someone else is in charge of it. It doesn't work. They'll always force you to do what benefits the company and not you, your personal life, and your family. But with fractional, the opposite is true. With fractional, you choose when you work, what you work on, who you work with, where you work from. You set the terms of the engagement. You set the terms before anyone signs a contract, before money exchanges hands. You're the business owner now. You're setting the terms and your client agrees, and they can't change those terms without your permission. Corporate leaders in a W-2 are just employees who lead a function, but they can't fully lead their own careers and their lives. They're leaders in name only, on paper only. But fractional leaders are true leaders. They lead everything that has to do with their work and how their work affects their life. And that's real control. That's real freedom that you want and that you deserve. And that's what you have when you go fractional. So I want to make this concrete with three examples of our clients who've made this transition. There are a ton of other success stories on our website, but these 3 are pretty good representations. So you'll see their career and their income background their career background and their income. You'll see their personal life, and you'll see how each one got there from a different starting point. And as we're going through these, I want you to think about which parts sound the most like your current situation. Where do you see yourself in these examples? So we'll start with Sean, who I mentioned briefly earlier. Sean is a guy, he takes the leap. He took the leap. He left his full-time job and he went all in on Fractional with us. He started out with us to get his time back with his family as soon as he possibly could. That was his goal. I'm going all in. I'm going hard. I'm going to make this happen. So he was a senior vice president of growth at a big company. He had 21 direct reports. He had triple booked meetings every single day, all day, including weekends. And he started that job the day after he and his wife brought their newborn son home for the first time. He never got proper paternity leave. And 18 months in, after they had their son, he was waking up at 4 a.m. just to keep up with his work and his family. So the catalyst for him wanting to do this with us was his son starting preschool. So Sean wanted to be that dad who could drop his son off at 9, pick him up at 2. Well, but with the corporate job, he realized that was just not going to happen. You can't do that when you've got 3 meetings and you have to choose which one to go to at every hour of the day. So what did he do? He made the jump. No more full-time job, no income. His income went to zero as he made the decision to work with us. But then within 60 days of starting with us and going all in, he had locked in $20,000 a month in recurring engagements. Those were two companies, 2 engagements, total $20,000 a month, $10,000 each. And they were growing companies in the pet care space. A different structure entirely than what he was used to, but $240,000 a year and growing with room to grow on the back of just 2 clients, working less than half the hours he was working when he was a W-2. And now he can spend that time that he wants with his family. His skill set as a growth guy, as a marketer guy, it was already there. He developed it over a decade plus. He just needed the right structure, and that structure for him is Fractional. Another guy, John, another one of our guys. So John had the full-time job, but he isn't happy in it. And he realizes that this one source of income isn't financially secure and that layoffs are a real risk for him specifically. So he's been 15 years in procurement. He's currently at a Fortune 100 company. He's at IBM. And he has a wife and 3 kids to support. So John, the way he approached it, I'm going to keep my job. And he built his fractional practice on the side, 1 to 2 hours a day in between meetings, in the evenings, in the mornings. And within 2 months doing this part-time, he'd secured a 6-figure fractional contract, over $100,000 in contracted value, plus a per contract incentive on top of that, while he's still drawing his W-2 paycheck. And now he also has this second full business that pays him independently. And he told me, we were talking about this, he told me, I work in an industry where a lot of jobs get shipped overseas, and there's always that looming threat of being replaced. And this was after we'd been working together for a couple months. He said, in these 2 months, that burden has completely lifted off of my shoulders. This is a quote. He said, I don't need that anymore. If my company was like, yeah, goodbye, then I just say, great. Now I'm 100% into this. So you don't need to go all in on the start. You don't need to burn the boats if you don't want to. You can build your fractional practice as a second income stream while your employer is still paying you. I always tell people, let your employer be your first angel investor. Let them fund your exit. And if you get laid off, then you still have an income now to pay the bills because you were smart and you built this practice on the side. And now if you do get laid off, you just have more time to grow it. There's no pressure and there's no fear. Or even better, you can just leave whenever you want. You can have that conversation with your boss or whoever it is. Hey, you need me more than I need you. Let's talk about what it's going to look like if I'm not here. Powerful position to be in. You're not stuck in a job you dislike just because you need the paycheck. Third guy, Adam. Adam is a guy, he reached the pinnacle of his career as an operations guy, as an executive. He was at top aerospace companies. He was at Blue Origin, Collins, Raytheon, Honeywell. But he was totally burnt out and fed up. And he left his last role and went all in with us on Fractional. So Adam has 17 years of experience running operations, owning P&Ls. Some of the P&Ls he owned and oversaw over $1 billion. Serious guy. And when he first reached out, he told me he's burned out. In another conversation I had with him, his exact words were, I was hating life to be honest with you, to be 100% honest with you. I was on airplanes constantly. I was working 18 hours a day, especially at Blue Origin. And I was to the point where I just didn't want to get out of bed. And he'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur. He just never knew how. He didn't have the sales background. And he told me that he was scared of the risk prior to working with us. But he made the decision, he made the jump, and within 60 days, he closed $175,000 worth of fractional engagements, which is roughly $14,500 per month in recurring contracted revenue in less than 60 days from zero, from zero, while working under 20 hours a week. And he's got 6 more projects in the pipeline. And this week, actually, a CEO in another state is flying him in to discuss a much larger engagement on top of all of this. And I asked Adam what his life looks like now. And he told me a story about a Monday earlier this month. His son's school was holding a role model day where kids invite someone that they look up to. Adam's son picked him to come into the school. Adam went to school. He sat next to his son. They ate cinnamon rolls. It was cinnamon role model day at school. And Adam told me this was the first time in his entire life as a dad that he'd been able to do something like that. He told me again about the baseball games with his son later that day, s'mores around a campfire with his family, dropping his kids off at school in the morning and being home in time for the conversation that we were having at that time. And then Adam said something that stuck with me that I thought about almost every day since we had this conversation. Was last week we were having this conversation. He said, I really do think he's talking about fractional. He said, I really do think this is a new take on the American dream because it gives you presence and income security at the same time for your family. And it just doesn't get much better than that. Presence and income security at the same time. For most of your career, you've been told that you can have one or the other. You have to make a choice. You can be present at home or you can make real money. Or you can make real money, but you got to be on planes. You got to be on the road. You got to be working 60, 80-hour weeks in meetings all the time, missing that time with your family, letting them grow up without you. And that trade-off is what destroyed a lot of marriages and a lot of parents' relationships with their kids in my generation growing up, in the generations before me. And the fractional structure flips all of that. You no longer have to choose. You don't have to choose between money and family time anymore. Thanks to all of these tailwinds, these macroeconomic tailwinds that we've been discussing. I want you to do this. I want you to do a thought exercise with me. I want you to picture yourself 3 to 6 months from today. You're working from your home office or maybe a coffee shop, or really, frankly, you're working from wherever you want because you're the boss. You get to do what you want. There's no office you have to be in or meeting that you have to travel to. You've got 2 or 3 retainer clients paying you $20,000, $30,000 a month combined. You're working 20 to 30 hours a week, and you're deciding when you work and what you work on. This morning, you drove your kids to school. You'll pick them up in the afternoon. You'll be home for dinner every single night. When your daughter has a dance recital, you're right there in the front row clapping, hopefully not filming it. Film a little bit of it, but enjoy it. Actually watch it and be there and be present. When one of your kids has a t-ball game, you're right there. You're cheering them on. When your spouse wants to do something together spontaneously, you can just say yes because you're not, quote, too busy with work anymore. Your Sunday nights aren't filled with the dread and the anxiety of Monday, of the looming Monday, and the rest of your week they're not 10 to 12 hour, 10 to 14 hour days of chaos with fires to put out and useless meetings, wasting the time that you need to be using to put out fires. That's gone. You don't worry about being laid off anymore. If a client engagement ends, you just replace it. If the market shifts faster than anyone expected, fine. You're already running a business that adapts with the market, not against it. And here's the part I really want you to hear. That version of you 3 to 6 months from now didn't have to learn an entirely new business in an entirely different industry from scratch. All you had to do to get there, to get to the dance recitals that you're watching, not filming, if you take a few seconds of film it, then you watch it, then you'd be there. That version of you, you didn't have to learn something completely new. All you had to do was change the way that you monetize your existing career experience. This is a different structure. A different way to think about employment. That's it. So before I get into what it takes to be successful in making this transition to fractional, I want to cover some popular alternative business models that you hear bandied about all the time on the internet these days. They're not as easy as the gurus make them out to be. And time and again, I've spoken to successful corporate executives with 10 plus years of experience who, instead of just doing what we do, which is leveraging their experience to go fractional, instead they chased one of these shiny objects and they ended up worse off than they were before. They ended up in debt with months of wasted time, even less confident about escaping their W-2, which is all they wanted to do in the first place. It's not these people's fault. I don't blame them. I blame the business models that just don't work as well as they seem to, or work as well as they're promised to work. And I don't want you to suffer the same fate. Okay, so option one that you hear about all the time, we talk about buying a boring business. This is the one that the gurus on LinkedIn probably push the hardest. They say, just buy a boring business. That's your escape route. That's how you break the golden handcuffs. That's how you escape the job. And what you're actually doing when you do that is you're taking on crippling debt for a business that you know nothing about. And these gurus, they want you, a white collar executive, to take $1 million plus SBA loan secured with your house and go run a plumbing company or an HVAC company or a laundromat. Think about that. You've never been a plumber or an HVAC tech. You never run a team of blue collar professionals. That'd be like me trying to go tell the Los Angeles Lakers what to do. They're not going to listen to me. Why would they listen to me? I don't know what I'm talking about. The promise is the business runs itself with some operator that you're going to put in there. That's what they tell you. That's how they get you. They say, oh, yeah, but you don't have to be an expert. You just go find an operator. You're going to hire an operator. But first off, where do you find these people? How much are you going to pay them? How much of your profit are you going to pay them? And if that operator quits, you're personally on the hook to run that business until you go out and you find another operator. And how exactly are you going to recruit and manage an HVAC company operator? You don't know this industry at all. So that's one option that I don't recommend. Another option that you see getting pitched all the time, these are AI arbitrage agencies is what people call them. So what you're supposed to do with this is you're supposed to cold pitch services and tools that you've never used, except when you were like learning how to use them to go sell them to somebody else. You've never delivered them, certainly. You have zero experience, zero client results, nothing unique about your offering whatsoever, just like every other copy-paste, innate-in automation peddler to every other business. You're going to pitch that to business owners, and those business owners have the exact same access to those AI tools that you're using. Extremely unlikely to go and sign clients. It's a modern day gold rush, and it's already over. Okay. Another one that I've seen people get sucked into, like this type of thing. An example is this passive income from something like vending machines. You see this all the time. Yeah, buy a vending machine, little mini franchise. So you're going to drop $40,000 for the privilege of buying, placing, managing, restocking, and repairing a fleet of vending machines while you make your money back a $3 candy bar at a time. And this is true. This is serious. One poor guy I spoke to had bought into this instead of going fractional with us. And the machines that they gave him that he paid so much money for, they didn't even work. They were breaking down all the time. And he was stuck in multi-five-figure debt that he was struggling to pay back. His wife even called me one night because she was so worried about him as all this was happening. They were trying to hire lawyers and go help him get out of this big mess. It's a serious situation and a dangerous situation. Even worse version of this is a full-on franchise. So this is another one that everyone talks about. I'm going to go buy a franchise. I'm just going to buy a franchise. The franchisor makes you think that you'll be highly profitable because you're getting this proven business model. Look, it's working in all these other places, sure. But what they don't tell you, these business models are normally in low-margin businesses like restaurants, brick and mortar type things. You're going to pay high ongoing fees and royalties for the franchisor for the rest of your life, plus a huge upfront initial franchise fee that leaves you with barely any profit. And if the business goes badly, then it's easily in the red. So like boring businesses, they're normally in industries where you don't have any experience. You don't even really know how to run it in the first place. So again, you become reliant on a manager or an operator who could fail or leave at any time. And then you're going to have to struggle to replace them. And that's just a few examples of alternatives that I see people pitching and getting sucked into. And when I see schemes like these, I don't think that they are get-rich-quick schemes. I think everybody knows to avoid those. So instead, I call them something else. I call these get rich easy schemes, because the pitch is always the same. They always say, make money without work, basically, is what they say. The boring business or the franchise is going to run itself with an operator or a manager. This magic wizard that you're going to go hire for $100,000 a year, sure, is going to do all your dirty work for you. The vending machines, they're going to sell the products with foot traffic from the location, and you just sit back and you count your money $1.50 at a time. The AI tools do the client work for you. These magic robots that you know nothing about, that every other business they're going to happily pay you to deploy into their business that you also know nothing about. So that's one of my main problems with these schemes, is that they're built to appeal, frankly, to laziness. But you're not lazy. You've been hardworking. You've been ambitious for your whole career, and you shouldn't fall for this kind of stuff. You don't need to become a beginner doing this business model from scratch, competing against others who have years of experience and credibility behind them. You just need to leverage your decades of career experience the right way, and that's fractionally. So what does it take to actually do this? What does it take to successfully go fractional? I'll tell you this, it's not for everybody. That's for sure. It's not for everybody. Most people who try it fail, frankly. Our program even does not have a 100% success rate. We'll tell you what's possible and what some of our clients have achieved, but we make no guaranteed income claims whatsoever. But what I can also tell you is succeeding or failing with fractional is not random chance or luck or a coin flip. Time and time again, I see the same things lead to people succeeding and the same things leading to people failing. So let's start with what works. What type of person does fractional work for? The people most likely to succeed. Well, first off, they're seasoned. They're seasoned executives with 10, 15 or more years in a function. They've owned P&L, they've led teams, they've fixed bottlenecks, they've scaled, cleaned up big, scary messes, and they've truly owned outcomes. These are the people who can talk metrics in their sleep. They can look at a P&L or a sales report or a marketing report, and they can tell you within minutes where money's bleeding out, where money's being left on the table. That's table stakes. You have to have that, period. If you don't have it, go get it before you try to do this. After that, you need something else. You need an identity shift. So for your entire career, you've been paid by the task. You've been paid by the project, by the year, by the job title. You've been an employee up until now. And even when you've been a senior leader, the underlying frame has always been the same. You're going to trade time and effort for compensation, and you're going to hope this company keeps paying you indefinitely because something, you're loyal to them. Okay. That's kind of what got us into this mess in the first place. And fractional flips that completely. So you're not selling your time anymore. Instead, what you're selling ownership of outcomes. So when a company has $1 million leak in their operations, for example, they're not buying you hourly to fix it. They want that leak fixed. And if you can fix it, they'll happily pay you well into 5 figures a month because the return on that investment is obvious. You're saving them 10, 20 times what you cost, which gets to what we're ultimately selling. If you want to be successful at fractional, you're not selling your time. You are selling, I got this in big letters for you. Are you ready? You're not selling your time. You're selling money at a discount. That's what you're selling. You're selling money at a discount. And that reframe changes everything. We spend a lot of time talking about this in the incubator program. It changes how you write your offer. It changes how you talk to prospects. It changes what you charge. And once you internalize this, you can't unsee it. You'll look at your current W-2 and you realize you've been selling years of your life at a massive discount to the one buyer who knows that they're paying you much less than you're worth. To succeed with fractional, you don't keep showing up to client conversations like an employee asking for a job. You don't show up to sales conversations like a job hopeful. You show up as an independent expert with real, proven, battle-tested value to offer. And that's the difference. So let's talk really quickly about who fractional is not for. Who is this not for? Who does fractional not work for? So first thing I'm always looking for when I'm evaluating somebody for this, if you need predictable income from day one, fractional is not the right move. Some people with the right system, like Adam, Sean, and John, land their first highly paid engagement within 60 days. But it can take several months. And there's always a period before that first engagement where you're putting in work and you're not getting paid for it. And some people just can't handle that. They're too used to a paycheck every month, this slow drip of safety money morphine every other week. They're too used to that to stomach a little bit of risk. So if you need that immediate reward and you can't be patient, this is not the right thing for you. Next, if you are deeply uncomfortable initiating conversations, not just leading them, starting them, conversations with business owners about what's broken in their business. So if telling a CEO, hey man, your operations are jacked up, is leaking margin, and here's why, and here's what's wrong, if that makes you really anxious, then you're going to struggle at this. You're going to struggle specifically on the initial conversations, on sales calls. And that can be worked on, but it is a big, big challenge to be aware of. Another one. If you can't fluently, with pure fluency, talk about the metrics of your function, if you can't quickly look at a P&L, a sales report, and tell me, hey, where's money being left on the table? You're not experienced enough for this yet. You're not. And that's okay. Don't buy vending machines either. Go get experience. Go get experience, and then we talk again in a couple years. So if you check all of our boxes, things that makes fractional work, then the only thing left is you need the right system to acquire clients, to sign fractional clients. So you need external help on how to do that. The people who fail, they try to apply what they know about getting jobs, the old way of getting jobs, and then maybe they apply some surface level free info that they found online on a YouTube video somewhere. They try it alone first to, quote, see if fractional works for them, to see if they can just do it alone, but it rarely ever works. And then they conclude that, it doesn't work for me because they weren't doing the right things, and they weren't doing the right things at enough frequency, and they weren't doing the right things at enough frequency for long enough. The actual work that you do with your fractional clients is totally based on your career experience and what you already know. But the process of signing these clients is not. This is a totally new skill and totally new process. So think about it like this. The structure of full-time jobs and the difficulty getting a job is the problem right now. It's why we're here talking about fractional in the first place. Probably plenty of you watching this have applied to hundreds of jobs. You're unemployed, you've applied to hundreds of jobs and have heard crickets. That's the problem. That's just, it shows the systemic fracture in our labor market in the USA right now, really globally right now. That's the problem. So if you approach fractional with that same mentality, that same knowledge that you've had in your career finding full-time jobs, it's going to work even worse. It's going to work even worse because it's apples to oranges. It's different. So that's what it takes to successfully go fractional. You need that career expertise and experience. You need that identity shift. You need the right mindset. Yes, you do. And you need the right process to sign fractional clients. Hint, we're no longer begging for work. We're no longer applying for jobs. We're offering solutions. And that's the key difference. So a few things you might be thinking to yourself as you're watching this, some common concerns that you might be having. You might be saying, well, all this sounds great, Harrison, but it still sounds risky. Because it's still entrepreneurship, right? Starting a business is risky. I've always heard that my entire life. Entrepreneurship is risky. That's why I went into the corporate rat race in the first place. Well, my answer to that is this. To you, dear viewer, which of these scenarios sounds riskier to you? Scenario A, learning how to acquire multiple income streams based 100% on your existing skill set and 10 plus years of experience. Or scenario B, where you have 100% of your income from one job, like having 100% of your income in a single stock, or your net worth in a single stock. You could go to zero at any point through no fault of your own, totally out of control, and be left with nothing in scenario B. And then you'd be right, like the people we were talking about at the beginning, you'd be trying to get a job in an economy where, as Jerome Powell says, there is zero net new job creation right now. Jobs in your industry have been declining for 31 months straight. The number of unemployed people applying for them keeps increasing, and the biggest technological revolution since the internet, artificial intelligence and automation, is accelerating that whole process as we speak every single second of every day. I know which one sounds riskier to me. You get a few baskets, put eggs in each one. How about that? Another concern that I hear. Well, I've never sold anything before. It sounds like I have to sell, right? If I want to do this, I have to be able to sell. But I've never done that. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not a sales gal. I'm an operator. Well, most successful fractional executives aren't natural salespeople either. Adam, who we talked about, was in operations. Sean's in marketing. John's in procurement. None of them are sales guys. Now, if you are a sales guy or a sales gal, then you're way ahead of the game and you can have an even simpler time, which is great. But it's not about your charisma or your persuasion to do this successfully. It's about the structure of the conversation that reveals an ROI on working with you specifically. So you ask questions about a company's metrics, you find the money they're missing out on, you label that problem, you describe how you'd fix it, and you name your price, which is much less than the money you're going to save or make the company at its simplest form. Another hesitation you might be feeling right now, well, I don't want to leave my full-time job and risk going out on my own. And to that, I say, well, of course, you don't need to do that. If you buy a boring business, you probably do. But if you just want to go get a fractional engagement on the side, that's totally realistic. It's one of the most realistic things you could do. You always say it's easier to find a job when you're already employed. Well, it's easier to find a fractional engagement too, because you're hot property. If you're like, this girl's doing something, I want that skill in my business. Okay, so fractional is ideal to do part-time alongside your full-time job. Over half of our clients do it that way. And they're not getting it, and it's not a little piddly side income either, $500,000 a month. These are real, robust engagements, 5-figure a month engagements that you deserve to be paid based on your expertise. You only leave your job when you want to. Once you're already making a significant fractional income and you have plenty of savings, that's when you get to have that conversation with the CEO or whoever it is. They let them know that they've been funding. You don't have to tell them this. They've been funding your startup this whole time. So like, think about our client, John, who we talked about earlier. He did this alongside his procurement job at a Fortune 100 company, signed a 6-figure fractional contract on the side. And he has that income now plus his job income. Another one I hear frequently, well, I don't like the idea of doing a lot of outreach. I don't like that. I don't want to do a lot of outreach to get clients. And here's the problem with that one. If you're telling me you don't want to do outreach, what you're telling me is that you want to passively wait for clients to come inbound to you. It's the only other way. So maybe referrals, your network, or maybe you're going to go to some networking events or something. But when you're doing that, that means is you're giving up one of the most important things about fractional. You're giving up control. If you're waiting for them to come to you, you're not in control of that. You're not in control of your client acquisition. And then by extension, you're not in control of your income. If you were to go out and apply for W-2 jobs, that's a form of outreach too. And a lot of you have probably been doing that. There's just no way around it. If you want any sort of real control over your income, being able to go out, send messages, and sign clients is exactly how you win direct control over your income and become financially self-reliant and secure. And it's only time-consuming and, quote, boring until you sign that first client. Then it gets really fun. And as soon as you do that, it compounds because you've got track record. You've got proof. Like Adam with a $175,000 engagement in a couple months, 20 hours a week. John with a 6-figure contract. I think he was doing like 10 hours a week to earn that. Sean, 2 $10,000 a month recurring engagements. You'll feel more motivated to keep going. And you might even come to enjoy the process once you take the dive and you start doing it. If you have that right process, your outreach doesn't feel salesy. It doesn't feel like cold pitching either. It just feels like you're offering true value to business owners, which is what we're selling in the first place. Money at a discount. All right. Another common thing I hear from people who can't make the decision, well, I'm just too busy. I'm just too busy for this. I don't have the time to do this. And first I say, you don't need much time. Bare minimum 5 hours a week is enough to get going. It's enough to get some traction. Fractional is ideal to do alongside your full-time job. Other business models to escape your career are going to take way more time than we're talking about, since they're a brand new skill set that you're learning from scratch. So what you're ultimately saying in the situation is that if you don't have time, is that you feel like you don't have time to escape your career because your career keeps you so busy. You see the logical problem with that? It's an endless cyclical trap. If you can't dedicate some time and some effort to escape your career, then you will stay in it forever, or you'll stay in it until the market decides that you're not in it anymore. There's just no way around that. So one last thing before I wrap up, because it keeps people trapped in careers that they don't like more than anything else. And that's this idea that they feel like doing something new, like fractional or another business model, is a risk with potential losses. Loss aversion trap is what we call this. So they feel like there's potential losses in wasted time, wasted money, wasted effort, maybe feeling like they look stupid in front of people, trying to do something different that the average person's afraid to do, which, by the way, if you want an above average life, don't do what average people do. That never works. So you're going to have to do things different than the average person, but that's a different point. So anyway, they feel that sticking with their current career is safer because it comes without this, quote, risk or loss. So they see the upside of going fractional or doing something else, but they stay stuck in this emotional fear of loss so that they stay stuck in their career instead of thinking that now they in this career thinking that at least they're not going to lose anything if they stay stuck. But the bad news I have for you is that you're already losing. You're already facing significant risk, and you've already lost so much. Based on all the examples and the stats I've shown you right now, you're at risk of getting laid off and losing 100% of your income in any given day of the week. You're at risk of struggling to find another job after that happens and burning through your savings until you do, if you ever find another job. And to make it worse, if you're working 50, 60 hours a week, you're already losing 10 to 20 hours of family time that you can never get back. You're already losing. If you're chronically stressed, you're tired, you're burnt out, you're fed up with your career, you're already losing the mental and health peace and happiness that you could have had with another type of career or another business like fractional, where you would actually be in control. Where you would actually be in control of when you work, where you work, the work you do, who you work with, and in control of your income and your financial stability. So there's no avoiding the decision. The decision's being made every single day. You're just deciding which risk and which loss you're comfortable with. Which means the only real question is, do you want to keep suffering with the problems you have now, with your career and your life that motivated you to watch this video? How long are we going to be? 50 minutes by the time we're done with this thing. You wouldn't watch me for 50. I think I'm captivating, but you wouldn't watch me for 50 minutes if there wasn't a problem. Come on. You get to choose. Do you want to stay there, or do you want to put in the work to try to escape? If you try and fail, you're just in the same position you were before. Same career, same situation. You haven't really lost much. But if you succeed, your life will be totally different, and you won't have any of those same problems anymore. So if you've decided that you definitely want to start going for fractional roles, and you now want to learn how to sign those fractional clients, that client acquisition system that we teach in the incubator, talk to us in the DMs or on the call with us if you've already scheduled that. Happy to talk about how we help. If you're still not sure and you have specific questions or concerns, message me in the DMs and I'll clarify them for you. I'm not going to push you into anything that is not right for you. I'll help give you the clarity that you need to make the right decision on if fractional is right for you or not. And I'll leave you with this. Corporate jobs are not what they used to be. I hope you've gotten this takeaway from this presentation. There's a crisis of layoffs. There's a lack of new jobs. AI is only going to continue to compound and make it worse. But the exact same shift going against corporate jobs is going in favor of fractional roles. And the question is whether you'll stay in the old boat of corporate jobs going against the tide, or you'll jump in this new boat of fractional roles going with the tide. And as Warren Buffett famously has said, It's not about how hard you row. It's about what boat you're in. So that's it from me. Thank you for watching.